Good.
Okay, go live. 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. What is it? Tuesday, January 21st. And I'm here with Steve Prescott, my husband. I'm Stephanie Prescott. And we had a big inauguration yesterday.
Yeah, that was good.
Big inauguration yesterday. That was a big day. I don't know how many of you out there spent a lot of time in front of the TV and then you got to the end of the day and you were like, wow, I didn't get much done today. But it was, for many people, it was a wonderful day. For some people, I'm sure it wasn't. But it already has people asking, what changes might we expect in the market?
I know one thing, that there weren't a lot of people outside probably goofing around yesterday. And it's more like today, too. I mean, here we sit watching this, the wind blow, the snow blow, pretty crazy out there. That probably keeps some people from maybe not moving to our area.
Right. Well, it was cold there, too. That's why they had to move it in.
You know, we have a lot of people that call or they come here and they say they want to own a piece of land in the West. They want a ranchette. And so we have a lot of folks that move here for that reason. And it's great. And they get here and we are always pro-growth for, our community. And then what's funny is a lot of times I'll have that same person call back in a year after they've bought a property here, and then they end up wanting to move somewhere else. So there's good and bad with the weather around here.
It's pretty romantic lifestyle, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of history, a lot of that Western feel. And then sometimes the wind is a little brutal like it is today, but it was brutal in DC yesterday too when they did that. So do you foresee any changes coming right out of the gate?
I really don't think so. I mean, I'd love to say from a selfish standpoint, yeah, I would love to see a lot of changes coming up. But there's, it's hard for the president to really be able to dictate and to really put that much pressure on the real estate market and the Federal Reserve. So, the hope is that I know he has like an executive order that he wants to make things more affordable for people. So lowering inflation, lowering interest rates, costs of services. He really wants to see that come down. And I think we all want to see that for sure. But, with interest rates, there's so many different things that deal with interest rates on lowering. And so I don't suspect that we're going to see a change overnight by any means. And I think he'll work towards that goal of lowering inflation and interest rates. But I would expect, and I'm no economist and I'm not a lender, but I would expect we'll see some interest rates slowly drop throughout this next year, but not by much. I don't expect that much is going to happen. I think maybe we'll see, maybe a half a point go down, and I'm just throwing out numbers because of what we've seen this last year. We had a lot of economists saying that interest rates were going to drop by a point by the end of 2024, and that didn't happen. And in fact, they kind of went up a little bit right at the end of the year. So
right, that was unexpected. Was it 2022 when the interest rate almost tripled?
Yeah, it was
or
in 22.
At least doubled, or something like that.
And that took everyone by shock. It was, everyone was used to seeing a 3% interest rate, and it was still keeping some movement going on. People have, it really affected the move-up buyers, I would say, in Cheyenne that wanted to, they maybe bought a home during COVID, and that was out of pressure because sometimes they had to settle for the home that they were in, and they weren't, loving it so much. So they really were moving up. And then once those rates hit, I call it the lockdown effect, which is where, it's really hard. It locks you down. It's really hard to leave a 3% interest rate when now today's rate's more like, 6%, 6.5%, 6, a little bit, almost 7%. Right. So it's a lockdown effect for a lot of folks here in Cheyenne.
So what do you guys think? What do you think out there? We're live here for 20 minutes. If you have any questions about the real estate market or what's trending, or even how many homes sold last year, or anything like that related to real estate as an investment, or buyers or sellers, or multifamily units, commercial, are you starting a business this year? There are so many people with 2025 goals, and that's exciting to see. We've seen a lot of it personally, and also with just some of our agents and our staff. It's exciting to see that people have some goals and ready to get moving. The last 4 years, I think, have been hard on a lot of us. Some of it real estate went crazy for a couple of years, but there's just been some strange stuff in American history. If you could shoot forward 50 years, what the reflection will be back, and so. Anyway,
Well,
we don't
and
know.
one thing that's really different is, I was in real estate, I've been now for over 30 years.
Jeez.
And I know, it's a
That's
long
a long
time, it is, I can't even believe I'm that old. I don't even know if I feel that old. But I've been in a long time, and so in 2007 and 8, the Great Recession, we had a slowdown in our market. We're a healthy market in Cheyenne, in my opinion, is probably around 350 to 450 homes. And at that time, we had about 900 homes on the market in 2007. And I wasn't even really watching the inventory that much at that point. It wasn't a number that I was really focusing on. So we had a real big slowdown there. Luckily our property values didn't tank,
Right.
but the recession only lasted about a year and a half.
Right.
And so then after a year and a half, we started to climb back up with more home sales, more people moving around. And this time frame has been very unpredictable because
Right.
we've had this kind of spike in interest rates, and it's really affected the activity in our market. We're nationwide. In 2007, 2008, we were around 4 million homes, 4.1 million homes sold in the nation. And this year in 2024, we're probably at 4 million or just under 4
Just
million
under.
homes sold in the nation. So, that shows a pretty big, it shows you how much it slowed down for total home sales.
Question from live. Someone asked, should I wait to buy until interest rates go down?
That's the golden question, right? Should I wait? So it depends on your situation, right? I mean, are you able to get by in your home? Are you able to live the lifestyle that you want? Currently, are you pressed for space? Are you pressed for things that you really need in a home? If that's the case and you really need more space, I would say to try to find a way to buy the new home. And here's why. Interest rates are going to hopefully drop at some point, but I don't think we're ever going to be back anytime soon to 3%. I just don't think that's going to happen. So we may get down to 5.5, something like that. That'd be great. But in that meantime, during that time period of waiting, our property values are still continuing to increase here in Laramie County, and that's kind of hard to believe, but they still do inch up. So that's good for homeowners and property owners because we always have a very stable market and it continues to tick up. But in waiting, that home that you may want to buy, it may be another $10,000 next year. And so you'd have to weigh, what's the trade-off there between the two? So I would say the answer is it depends. But the most common thing that happens is appreciation in Laramie County, and that raises your price, and so you may be paying more.
Right. So the good news there is that there isn't any trouble with doing a consultation with an agent to see. They can connect you with a lender and you guys can work together as a team, a little financial team, to help you make those decisions about when it's the right time for you, because everyone's answer might be different. Even the number of years you plan to be in Cheyenne would make a difference. So anyway, if you have that question and you get the answer of it depends, it really does. So reach out and get a little financial team put together to help you make those decisions and the best decisions for you and your family.
One thing that is attractive right now is we have certain properties are staying on the market longer. Certain things and certain homes are going under contract with multiple offers. It just kind of depends on the price range and what the property is offering. But one thing I will say is the market has slowed some on our days on market. So some sellers are being very generous right now with maybe concessions and interest rate buy downs. Like right now I'm working with a builder, Taft Love is his name, and he has Mill Iron TJ Construction. We have about 7 homes available out in the east part of Cheyenne. He has just offered $25,000 towards concessions and an interest rate buy down. So that means you may get to buy down the interest rate for 2 years and take advantage of that. So that, we have a lot of sellers that may be willing to do some concessions right now that will help ease that pain of that higher interest rate. So it could be a good time to check on some of those and get some concessions out.
Yeah, I like when we just did that video with Taft, and we talked about it ahead of time, and it was, you need to buy a home, we need to sell a home, new construction needs to sell a home, and so how can you make it a win-win? And so I like that, to work with people with the same kind of values that we share on on trying to make things work for other people.
Right. If people have their home for sale, they need to sell it probably. So hopefully the motivation is high enough where they're willing to do what it takes to get it sold.
Another question, should I buy an existing home or build? Where will I find the most value?
Oh, well, that's a good
Oh,
question.
he's going to have the same answer if it depends, but I think that's going to be the truth.
Oh boy, where will you have the most value? I'm going to say that, well, it does depend. And in existing homes, you're going to find a lot of properties, like existing rural homes. I guess it may depend on rural or in town. I think you get some pretty good value right now with rural homes because that market has slowed some, in my opinion. So I think sellers and prices are coming maybe just down a little bit on some of the rural things, both new construction and existing. So I think you may get a little bit bigger bang for your buck there. It just depends on, if you can, maybe you find a really good deal on an existing property that you can update and make it feel like new. So it really depends on choice, and so many things can come into that question. So it's kind of a tough one.
Well, and if you want to live in town, there really isn't a lot of new construction in town that I'm aware of. There's some up on the north side. Of course, I don't even know where the Laramie County versus Cheyenne kind of stops, but.
Yeah, you've got Whitney Ranch. We have some Sweetgrass is still going, some in Saddle Ridge. So there are some new construction
So that's all
options in
considered
town
home,
for people.
or in
Yeah,
town.
and then I know there's some new opportunities that are looking at. The builders are looking at with some newer kind of smaller row homes that will be maybe in the low 300,000s. That project may be getting off the ground in
Yeah.
the spring here. So that's great. That'd be offering some. I'm not going to say it's affordable housing, maybe more attainable housing. So there's some opportunities coming up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be exciting. That'll be something that if you're looking in the spring or the summer that we should have more information about. Really fun. So what are buyers looking for right now?
Well, what's interesting is that I think over the years I've been in real estate, when I first got in real estate, people they would consider more of a fixer-upper, or they may say, well, I can do this to this property, or I can do this. And that's kind of shifted. It's a little bit of a different mentality right now that buyers are looking for really more turnkey type properties. Unless they're really in the flip type market, people want something that's more turnkey. And so they're looking for something that's clean, probably has some updates, things are in good condition. And that's what buyers are looking more of right now than more of a fixer-upper. So if you're selling, it's really important to have a consultation with a real estate professional to figure out what things should I put into the property that are going to have a higher return or the best return. It's one of the cheapest things, it's free, is decluttering. And a lot of people don't declutter before they put their home on the market. And that's one of the things they certainly should do just to make it look better, as first impressions. But buyers are really looking for turnkey properties, obviously maybe some concessions if there are being some offered there, but it's changed a little bit from the old fixer-upper. The first property I ever bought years ago.
That's what I was just going to say. Tell them your story.
Well, it was a foreclosure. It was a VA foreclosure, and I can't even believe they sold it like this back then, but it had 2 inches of water in the basement. It had a groundwater problem. And so I bought it, and then I had a bunch of buddies come over. We jackhammered up part of the concrete around the perimeter, put in these drain lines in and a sump pump, and there was a market for that. People were looking for those sort of properties, and that's shifted some. Like right now, if I'm working with the buyers right now that I have, they wouldn't even probably walk in there or have any interest in that. So the mentality has shifted of a little more turnkey type properties.
Right. Yeah, DT recently mentioned that also, that her kids were able to get homes that needed some work, Allie here, that they needed some work, but that they knew how to do it and were willing to do it. And you're like that. I'm not like that. But, there's just a trade-off. If we were just to ask that question about the value, I guess the value would be, does the seller put the money into it or does the buyer put the money into it? And what's that negotiating, allow for?
Yeah, and I think you have to have an open mind. If there are some properties that just need cosmetic things, that's wonderful because, maybe some carpet and paint and flooring can go a long way, and you can really increase the appeal and property value with that. So,
do you even know, have you carpeted anything lately to know what it would cost to recarpet a 1,600 square
no,
foot
I'm
place?
still lost in the probably the early 2000s where I think it costs about $3,000 to carpet a house, but that's not the case anymore. It is super expensive for flooring and carpeting. So and even paint, a gallon of paint now. I think a gallon of paint's up to like $60
Oh, boy.
for a higher end paint. It's crazy. The other thing that's really pricey is as you go through the process of buying a home, is we have this due diligence period in the contract where you can do inspections on a property and determine if it's something you want to move forward with. So, these inspectors are going to come up with these items that they find that are wrong with the property, and you get to make the call. Well, what I've found now is that we used to have, maybe, budget, maybe $1,000 or something like that to fix some minor things in the property. And just as a nature, the business of business ownership for plumbers and electricians and heating, HVAC people, their costs have gone up so much to keep their employees and materials, that these repairs now, it's not uncommon to see a repair request of $5,000 to $8,000 for some repairs on a property. And so it's very staggering as a seller to get these requests thinking, well, I've been living here for the last 8 years. I don't need all this stuff. You can live with this, right? But that's not the mentality is I need all these things fixed, and it costs so much.
Oh, and it's insulting.
Oh, yeah. It's just human nature. You're
So
like,
that's-
wait a minute, I don't need to fix all
Yeah.
this stuff. Come on now.
That's
But that's
where-
the request. So that's part of the game. You have to be able to play it.
Yeah, and the value of having an agent that helps you with those negotiations to take the emotions out and put the logic in and
Right.
finding where it can make it a win-win.
Right. I always tell folks to look at it as a business transaction, and it's really hard to do that. I have, I don't know if it's a good or bad, but we have never really sold any properties that we've bought. So we've, just kind of keep them as rentals or whatever. But about 4 years ago, we had an agent here. They since have moved to Florida. Wonderful people. And he put his home on the market, and he said, it is horrible because he had to keep his bed made, his house picked up, he had to deal with his pets for showings. It was a horrible process. So many times and kids are another one. Before I had kids, I would go into a seller's property and I would say, all right, you're gonna have to keep this place picked up because we may have a showing in 15 minutes. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And I thought, well, you're gonna have to do something if you're gonna sell this place. Until I had kids, and then I realized there's no way. It would be so hard to keep your house picked up. And so it's been interesting to go through that process. And anyway.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
I have
So,
another question.
Oh.
Is it better to use seller concessions to pay for closing costs or a rate buy down?
That would be, I would counsel with your lender about that, because it really does depend on your length of time, how long you may live there, and the trade-off of the interest rate, your payment, and how much money you're saving. So there's a lot going on there, and I would ask to run a few different scenarios with the lender. Like if I get this much out of the seller, I put this much in towards my closing costs, because closing costs are still going to be there. You're typically on a loan, your closing costs may come up to between $5,000 to $8,000. Just depends on the purchase price, of course. Don't hold me to that number, but it does vary, and so you have to weigh those options of what it's going to take your price down to on your payment. But I would say off the hip, typically, if you can get a good concession out of a seller to buy down your rate, you're going to save a lot of money on those first couple years for your monthly payment, in the amount of, like we used a case on the new construction homes with Miller and TJ Construction, and one of the savings was up to about $400 to $500 per month of savings to buy down that interest rate. So that's significant. And so if I had to say off the hip, I would probably say to buy down your rate. The kicker with that, though, is you still do have to qualify typically at the higher rate. You don't get to qualify at the lower rate, so you still have that higher.
and then you'd still have your cash for the different things for the can of paint that you're gonna need.
The
or you might
$80
need.
gallon of paint.
Yeah, so I can see what you're saying. So your lender would be the one to help you.
Yeah, have them
Decide
weigh
that.
run some different scenarios and see. Yeah.
So I guess we'll be watching to see if you have any comments or questions. We'll come to you live every week, and you ask the questions that you have or reach out with whatever it is that's important to you for the real estate market. and we'll be here for you. So thank you very much. We thank you for choosing REMAX Capital Properties for your real estate transactions. We have awesome agents. We thank you for voting for us last year in 2024 for the best of the best real estate company in Cheyenne, and we always want to live up to your expectations. So if we can be of value or service to you, please let us know, and we'll see you soon.
Next time, whenever we have another video. Thanks for watching.
Stay warm today.
There we go.